All right, so we're going to continue the recycling conversation, and Kathleen Salyer is going to share with us what's happening at the national level. Kathleen is the Deputy Director at the Office of Resource Conservation and Recovery at the U.S. EPA, and I'm just really excited to hear what she has to say. So if you could join me in welcoming her to the stage.
So good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I particularly want to thank SWANA and David Biederman for the invitation to speak here today. SWANA has really been instrumental, particularly over the last year, in providing leadership and partnering with EPA in efforts to strengthen the U.S. recycling system. So I really want to recognize their leadership and our continued collaboration. So I believe recycling in the U.S. is still strong. It's obviously facing some very significant challenges that are going to require our collaborative and concerted efforts to create a stronger and more resilient recycling system that's capable of withstanding future market disruptions and the ever-changing materials entering our waste streams. So EPA and our partners, through our America Recycles effort, have made great strides over the last year, and I believe we've defined some initial key steps to improving recycling in the U.S. Over the last year, our America Recycles effort have convened stakeholders across the recycling system to engage in robust dialogues and to identify and start to take concrete actions towards a more sustainable recycling system. That's why I'm really excited to be here today. It's an opportunity for me to share the progress we've made collectively and to preview the path forward. But speaking of progress, I do want to highlight the city of Phoenix. They're a great example of action cities across the country are taking to improve our U.S. recycling system. The city has a goal of diverting and is working towards diverting 40% of their waste from landfill and has started innovative programs towards this goal. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to see firsthand how they are working to meet these goals at the Resource Innovation Campus Tour. Their efforts there address the need to create and support local markets for recycled materials. It's an area I've heard is a key need repeatedly over the course of our dialogues over the last year. So let's get started. So I'm going to take you back about a year, America Recycles Day, November 15th, 2018. EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler convened senior leaders from across the recycling system to join EPA in signing the America Recycles Pledge. All 45 signing organizations, including EPA, committed to working together to identify specific actions to take in addressing the challenges and opportunities facing the recycling system. We now have more than tripled the number of pledge signers since that day. We're up to over 140 and counting. At the summit, 4 key action areas emerged, and these action areas have been continually underscored and reaffirmed as the primary areas of need to address the challenges facing our recycling system. I'm sure these are all very familiar to you and resonate. First is promoting education and outreach. Next, enhancing materials management infrastructure, strengthening secondary material markets, and enhancing measurement. These action areas have formed the basis for our America Recycles work groups over the last year. We've had great progress in addressing the challenges and opportunities in each of these areas, and I'm looking forward to walking you through the work of the work groups in each of these areas. So education and outreach. Most Americans want to recycle. They believe recycling provides an opportunity for them to do their part for the environment. However, it can be difficult for consumers to understand what materials can be recycled and where to recycle different materials. This confusion often leads to placing recyclables in the trash or throwing non-recyclable materials in their recycling bin or cart. The education and outreach work group is developing key messages on recycling issues for public and media audiences, including how to recycle right and the value of recycling. The work group has compiled input from major businesses, industry associations, local governments, and other stakeholders from across the recycling system. We are working to organize these messages in a way that will allow everyone in this room and others from across the recycling system to have consistent messages on key issues at the federal, state, and local levels, as well as the private sector. Consistent and coordinated messaging on common but critical recycling issues can have a hugely positive impact in strengthening consumer understanding of how and why to recycle. Our recycling infrastructure is outdated. It's in desperate need of upgrading and ill-equipped to handle the diverse material streams of today. Expanding access to recycling infrastructure is a key element to improving the recycling system, but financing upgrades remains a key challenge. The infrastructure work group is compiling available funding opportunities around the country for infrastructure upgrades. They are also initiating work to map existing recycling infrastructure. This effort will begin to provide a clearer picture of the infrastructure that is currently available and will help identify where there are gaps in service. We can use this information to have a more strategic and targeted approach to enhancing recycling collection and processing capabilities in the U.S. Improving the quality of the recycled materials we produce through infrastructure investments is only one side of the equation, as demand must also be increased for the system to work. Domestic markets for recycled materials need to be strengthened in the United States. The good news is that 70% of recyclables collected are used domestically, so we have a very strong base to build from. The Markets Work Group successfully partnered together to spur market development activities across the country. A few examples: EPA and the National Recycling Coalition co-sponsored 2 workshops that focused on local, regional, and national solutions to building secondary material markets. At these 2 conferences, the Resource Recycling Conference and the State of Texas Alliance for Recycling Summit, attendees discussed current material markets landscape, areas of strength and weakness, and work towards developing local and regional solutions to strengthen markets. At an upcoming workshop co-hosted by National Recycling Coalition, EPA, and the California Resource Recovery Association, planned for November 13th in Chula Vista, California, will further explore these activities. You can find information about that workshop on the NRC website. The work group also began assembling a market development toolkit for governments, MRFs, and associated facilities. The toolkit includes FAQs, guidance on how to conduct cost versus benefit analysis to assess financial outcomes of potential investments. Lastly, the work group helped inform the development of a new initiative within EPA's WasteWise program that will help strengthen and increase domestic demand for recyclables. Stay tuned for the rollout of this exciting new initiative in WasteWise during America Recycles Week. Stakeholders across the recycling system agree that more consistent measurement methodologies are needed for measuring recycling system performance. These more standardized metrics can be used to create effective goals and track progress. The measurement work group is developing a common definition of recycling, a detailed map of the entire recycling system showing the flow of materials as they are managed, and an inventory of metrics available to track progress and evaluate recycling programs. These efforts will help align and standardize recycling measurement across the U.S. And finally, a product that supports all 4 action areas will be the launch of a virtual clearinghouse on recycling information. This clearinghouse is made possible by the generous leadership of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Among other things, the clearinghouse will feature key messages from the Education and Outreach Work Group, state and local government success stories, communication and outreach strategies and resources, available funding opportunities for infrastructure enhancements. This resource should provide a valuable one-stop location for the latest information to support a sustainable recycling system in one centralized, reliable, and well-maintained platform. So what is EPA specifically doing? So we intend to continue to provide leadership and facilitate the work group's efforts as we move into 2020. Convening stakeholders and facilitating a national dialogue remains a critical role for EPA. We also plan to undertake efforts across all 4 action areas. A few of the examples include developing a pilot educational campaign on how to decrease the amount of plastic film entering curbside recycling programs by encouraging recycling through retail collection programs, exploring opportunities with America Recycles workgroup members to host additional regional and state market development workshops to help bridge connections with economic development organizations, update EPA's RECON tool, which can be used to calculate emission reductions associated with the use of recycled materials and products. We plan to develop a Federal Register notice to solicit public comments on current requirements for recycled content products purchased by federal agencies. These are known as the Comprehensive Procurement Guidelines. We plan to update EPA's Measuring Recycling, a guide to state and local governments, a guide for state and local governments. And finally, releasing the national framework for advancing the U.S. recycling system. So the framework represents the multi-stakeholder effort under the America Recycles effort and will highlight the accomplishments of the America Recycles workgroup members over the last year. It'll present next steps and chart the path forward to an even more resilient recycling system. And I really want to emphasize that this is a multi-stakeholder framework. This is not a federal agency framework. It's not a EPA framework. It really reflects a multi-stakeholder collaboration. And that is reflective of the collaboration really needed to shift the recycling system. So as we look ahead to America Recycles Week, November 2019, EPA and our partners will have a full week of collaborative activities culminating in America Recycles Day on November 15th. On this slide are the communication themes for each day, which EPA and our America Recycles partners will use to inspire social media activities and other events each day of the week. So on Monday, November 11th, which happens to be Veterans Day, we will be highlighting veterans who make a positive contribution to the U.S. economy, including through employment in the recycling industry. On Tuesday, we'll be celebrating the role that data and measurement play in strengthening the U.S. recycling system. EPA will also be celebrating the 25th anniversary of WasteWise, which is, if you're not familiar with it, a voluntary partnership program which works with organizations and businesses to achieve greater sustainability through goal setting, data tracking, and reporting. On Wednesday, we'll be highlighting the importance of enhancing markets for secondary materials and the role using these materials domestically plays in supporting and growing the U.S. economy and jobs. On Thursday, we'll be focusing on promoting education and outreach to consumers on how to recycle properly and the value of recycling, and the role this plays in reducing contamination in the recycling stream and creating high-quality recycled materials. And finally, on Friday, on America Recycles Day, we will be highlighting the role of collaboration as key to finding solutions to the challenges facing our recycling system. So we view America Recycles Week as an opportunity to highlight the progress of the work groups that have made, as well as what others have accomplished over the last year. We have multiple activities planned, but I would like to highlight for a few minutes some of the key elements. Keep America Beautiful is kicking off things with a Veterans Day event and will recognize a national recycling hero at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. Fort Bliss is the largest Army military installation in the U.S. and has an impressive waste diversion rate of almost 60%. It regularly selects recycling heroes who go above and beyond to recycle at the facility. On Thursday, November 14th, EPA, in coordination with the Institute for Scrap Recycling Industries, Keep America Beautiful, SWANA, and the Recycling Partnership have planned an innovation fair in Washington, D.C. from 1 to 6 p.m. The fair will be open to the public and connect potential investors to recycling innovators to spur market development and adoption of new technologies, as well as products comprised of recycled contents. Participants will showcase their innovative efforts across the recycling system, including research, education and outreach, new technologies and processes, and recycled content products. The week culminates in our America Recycles Summit on Friday, November 15th. The summit will bring together the original 45 pledge signatories and additional pledge signatories over the past year. We'll celebrate the progress of the work groups to date and the work still ahead. We hope that you will join us in celebrating America Recycles Week and will be participating, or even better yet, organizing events in your area. In conclusion, I'm very proud to be able to share the collective progress the America Recycles Network has made over the last year. I particularly want to thank David Biederman and SWANA's leadership and expertise in working with EPA and other stakeholders to inspire and drive action. And to each of you here in the room today, I commend you for your continued efforts to create a more resilient domestic recycling system. We are now at over 140 pledge signers and counting. I encourage you to join us as we move forward into 2020. You can sign the pledge at epa.gov/America Recycles and be part of our exciting activities as part of the America Recycles Network. There's so much more work to be done, and we need your expertise, your experience, your innovative ideas to drive this work forward. And it really is only through collective action and sustained action that we'll be able to achieve a more resilient recycling system. So thank you so much for your attention, and I think I do have a little bit of time for questions. I don't know if we highlighted to put those forward, but I'm happy to entertain questions with the remaining time. Thank you.
Good morning.
Okay, great. So we'll do it this way. Okay, great.
I always, those that know me.
Yes, and you can also put them through the system, slido.com. That was talked about earlier in the conference, but please, go ahead.
First off, thank you so much for being here. And those that know me know I always have a question or a comment or something about recycling. I'm the Sustainability Program Manager for South Tahoe Refuse in South Lake Tahoe, California. We have a couple of things going on there. First of all, a very sensitive environment. We have a demographic that brings all types of people, local people that are more organically conscientious, and those that are visiting that aren't aware of what profound impact their visit and their disposable habits have on our community. So, to see something like this where there's a collaboration between the EPA and that there are resources available to us is very encouraging. A couple of things that I've found over the last 9 months or so as California has implemented certain mandates for the separation of organics, there's some confusion and complications in the disposal process because of the compostable packaging. It's not necessarily recyclable. So in a sense, it's created its own solid waste stream that is separate from typical solid waste, recyclable products, and organics. So we're trying to figure out how to educate people in not only looking for producer responsibility from the manufacturing standpoint, but also how to, down the stream, process and dispose of these compostable type of products that don't necessarily can be combined with organics such as food waste or green waste. So that's one question we have. If you could look at that, that would be awesome for us.
Great, okay, so I'm not sure if I got the question, but I heard it more as a comment on that's an issue, and I think it fits very well into what you identified as the collaboration and really needing the communication between the producers of these products, consumers, and the facilities trying to manage these products.
Yes, and for customers, so at our at our foundation and our biocycle level locally, it's where do I put this exactly as you set out. So being able to clarify some of these things, so when we do make choices for what we purchase and what's going to be used downstream and what's going to go through our single stream, how our company can separate them efficiently and give you the most support possible for diversion. And I'm very proud to say we have a 65% diversion rate through our company right now for South Lake Tahoe, so I'm pretty proud of that. But we'd like to increase that and go for 0 if possible.
Great,
so thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so go ahead. Go ahead. I have one question here I can get to, but please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're here. Go ahead with your question. Thank you.
After you. Blair Pollock, Orange County, North Carolina. The question is regarding the current piece of federal legislation regarding building recycling infrastructure, and I'm not sure I know the name of it, but what's the status of that, and what's your comments about the legislation, and when will it be open for public comment?
Yeah, so you're asking the wrong person on proposed legislation. So I'm with the executive branch. That's the Congress is working on that. I am aware of it. I'm not being in the executive branch, I'm not directly involved in the development of it. So I don't have a status update on that, unfortunately. But I do, there is actually a number of different proposed legislation out there that go to recycling infrastructure and other elements of the recycling system. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm not in a position to entertain questions on the proposed legislation. Okay, so that's, no one in the audience is standing up, but the question I have is any color standardization for containers in the works? So I think there's been discussion on that. I mean, from EPA's perspective, just maybe a reminder on EPA's role in this space. So our authority in the recycling area and more broadly our sustainable materials management is really to provide technical assistance, guidance, data, measurement, really to support local and state implementation of recycling programs. So EPA is not looking at any standards. We actually don't have, regulatory authority in this space. Let me just get a little closer to these. Right, this is a great question. So there's a lot of back-end ideas out there, what's being done to work with other federal agencies to help on the front end packaging requirements for food, medical, et cetera. So we have been trying to enhance our collaboration with the other federal agencies. So you can imagine the Federal Trade Commission, FDA, particularly when it comes to food packaging, Department of Commerce generally. So we've been working to enhance our collaboration, particularly if you're familiar on the on Reducing Food Waste Initiative, which is a collaboration with FDA, USDA, focused on food waste, but also certainly has to do with the packaging of food waste. But it is something we are really trying to stimulate the conversation there. I would say it's still certainly a work in progress. I think there's a lot more that needs to be done in getting additional action from these other agencies. So stay tuned. We hope to kind of increase the engagement of the other agencies in supporting the recycling system. Is EPA focused on specific commodities in the domestic market like paper? People cannot fathom that recycling has little or no value. So we are not focused on a specific commodity. We're really looking at the recycling system as a whole and the various commodities. Now, certainly some commodities are much more challenged right now in terms of their recovery rates, but we're really trying to keep our focus on the whole system and support others who are looking and able to go more specifically into a specific commodity. How can smaller NGOs and local communities be at the table for the conversation? Great question, because I find we do have states and cities participating in our America Recycles network. I would say it's fairly limited right now. I do think there is a capacity or bandwidth issue on their engagement, but we do have some limited participation. What I really would encourage is working with, if you are a smaller community, working with your state or local governments, because that local action is critical, and it's, not everyone has to participate at the national level. We want representative participation, but I really would encourage everyone to participate in efforts your state or local county governments may have underway. So I'm out of time, but thank you very much for your attention and engagement.